Hello, everybody. It's New Year's Eve, and that means it's time for the 14th annual Radio Dismuke New Year's Eve broadcast.
This is the Donley New Year's Party. The correct standard time is just 3 minutes before 12 midnight and 1930.
Green lantern of mystery. Bo 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 dum dum dum. Ring dum ding wa ba do. Ring bo bo ba da da do. Bo bo wa ba do. Madrid, nightly I parade through old Madrid. I would hate to think I've lost you, haven't forgiven, pretty little maid of old Madrid. Don't care to go. I'm home about 8, just me and my radio. Ain't misbehavin', I'm saving my love for you.
It's American Peptime is the only tune'll do. It's American Peptime that enthuses through and through. Now I've heard the Merry Widow, the Candy Kiddo, but give me the Sam Sam Sam, the Please Not So Sam. Whoopee crazy, yes I am. American Peptime is the only tune'll do.
Hello, 1930. Happy New Year! Folks, away, folks! Happy New Year! All the things that we forgot and never gone to find. And all the things that we forgot and days of old.
Maine or on the western plain, makes no difference where you go. Cinderella and her fella have the parlor lights turned low, listening to the radio. Love is on the air tonight, and it's on a heart-to-heart hookup. Love is everywhere tonight. Better look your coziest nook up. Each station throughout the nation will have a song coming through. So if your set works, the major networks will do your wooing for you. You should never sing to her if a song is not up your alley. You may sound like Bing to her, but suppose she likes Rudy Valley. If some crooner from old Altoona can tell her better than you, why should you care, long as love is on the air tonight? Never sing to her if a song is not up your alley. You may sound like Bing to her, but suppose she likes Rudy Valley. If some crooner from old Altoona can tell her better than you, why should you care, long as love is on the air tonight?
And greetings, everybody. This is New Year's Eve. Welcome to Radio Dismuke, wherever in this wonderful world you happen to be. And this is our 14th annual New Year's Eve broadcast, and we are in Dallas, Texas. We have traveled outside of our home base of Fort Worth to this little town on the outskirts of the Fort Worth suburbs. It's called Dallas, a charming little town. And so we have here in the studio, to my right and manning the turntable right now, is Eric, and let me get Eric's microphone up. Eric, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. This is Eric, also known as Big E, from Big D or ?
Or Dalworthington Gardens.
Yes.
That's right.
It's great to be here.
And so over here at mic number 3 is Eddie the Collector. Eddie is now the only person who has been to every single one of these broadcasts other than myself. So say hello to everybody, Eddie.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here for the 14th time. Hope you enjoy the evening. And if you're hearing this on New Year's Day, Happy New Year's. And
also, we've got back for, I think this is your 3rd year here, we've got Connor.
Hello.
And so, anything else to say?
Not particularly.
You have a website that's a kind of cool website.
oldtimeblues.net.
Yeah, so he puts a lot of his 78s up there, so there's a lot of cool stuff. And joining us for the 2nd year in a row is Dustin. Say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
And tell everybody about the cool thing that you operate.
All right, I operate a private museum and an Airbnb called the Edison Exchange. We have an extensive collection of Edison recordings, close to 200 Edison phonographs, memorabilia, advertising, and you can also come stay a night with us and record a record on an Edison phonograph.
And that is cool. That is cool. And then what we're going to do next is we have Leslie here. Now, Leslie is our gracious hostess. She is hosting us from this beautiful 1920s bungalow in the little charming village of Dallas. Say hello to everybody, Leslie.
Hey, y'all. I'm also going to see if I can get my little roommate here to say Happy New Year to y'all. We'll see if he wants to talk.
Come on.
He no.
He's all squeaked out.
He's not for it. So sorry about that. I was going to let y'all talk to Mango, but
Leslie has 5 cats here, including one of the world's coolest cats. I call him Boo Woo, but she calls him
Maynard Krebs.
Yeah. Yeah, but I call him Boo Woo. He's a little white and black tuxedo cat, and he's got a sister who looks just like him, except she's gray and white, and she's Boo Woo Sis. And they're coolest cats. And then she's got 3 stripy cats, and this is one of them. And sometimes she can press him in a certain way, and he'll meow on command. She's got another stripy cat. She'll put her arms up in front of a refrigerator, and he'll jump from the counter through the. There we go. Yeah, so we got.
He just keeps purring. He's so happy, but I think he was tired of me holding him finally, so he had a little something to say.
So that's cool. So thank you for hosting the broadcast, Leslie.
Oh, sure.
And so our first recording for this evening is going to be from Eddie the Collector. Now he is going around to the microphone over here. And Eddie, tell us about the record you're about to play for us.
I have a Paul Specht Vivatonal Columbia. It's called She Looks Like Helen Brown. That is a play on words. They're saying she looks like Helen Brown. From what I remember when I saw her, she looked like pretty much like Helen anything. But anyway, this is from about 1927. I think it's 907D. But anyway, here we go with Paul Specht. She Looks Like Helen Brown.
All right, and so here we go. Eric is manning the turntable for us, and so let's give it a spin. Good one, Eddie. I like that. I was not familiar with that, and that was super cool.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it.
So, Eric, what have you up for us here on the New Year's Eve broadcast. And by the way, I didn't mention this earlier. One of the things we'll also be doing this evening is we're about to go into 2019 is going to be the new year. So one of the things we also do is 2019 is the 100th anniversary of 1919. So we're going to also have some recordings from that year as well. But right now we've got Big E from Big D.
Yes, my first offering on the program tonight is a record that it features two very talented people. There's Bubber Miley, who was a trumpet player, started with Mamie Smith, discovered by Duke Ellington. He was the one who used mutes in his trumpet to give that kind of that growling sound that gave the Duke Ellington Orchestra its special sound back in the 30s. Very distinctive. Also, too, the vocalist is Edith Wilson, who was a pioneer blues singer. This is one of the last recordings she made before pursuing an acting career. They were both very talented musicians. Unfortunately, Bubber Miley suffered the same fate as Bix Beiderbecke, and they died about the same time. Bubber Miley was 29 when he passed away in 1932. This recording here is from September 1930 on the Victor Scroll label. It's The Penalty of Love with Bubber Miley and the Mileage Makers.
Here we go.
He left me, went and got himself a young gal for his wife. Let him go wherever he must roam. When that gal gets tired of him, I told her to send him home, sweet home. That is the penalty of love, grin and bear it. That is the penalty of love.
And that was a good one. I was not familiar with that one at all. So up next in our rotation here, we have Connor. Connor, come around and tell us about. It looks like you have a Broadway record. Tell us a little bit about. And it looks in really good condition too for a Broadway. A lot of times, I'll find Broadway records, but they're usually in pretty trash condition. I have to, do a lot of work to get them ready for the station in terms of noise reduction. But this one looks like it's going to play really well. So Connor, tell us about it.
Yes, last year I brought a record by Divine's Wisconsin Roof Orchestra that I thought was a pretty good one. And since then I found one that I think is much better, one of the best I've heard. And it can speak for itself better than I can for it. This is Singapore Sorrows by Divine's Wisconsin Roof Orchestra, directed by Bill Carlson.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know anything about Wisconsin Roof? Was it a ballroom? Was it a hotel? Or
Yes, Wisconsin Roof was a ballroom in Milwaukee.
Cool. So a territory band.
Yes.
Oh, wow. So I'm looking forward to this. Let's give it a spin. And there we were. Well, Connor, that was cool. That was a Broadway Divine's Wisconsin Roof Orchestra. You don't see Broadways with that kind of quiet surface noise a lot. That was they didn't use the best quality shellac, let's just say. So that one's just a great great example there. Well, up next in our rotation is Dustin, so we are going to be playing here the absolute oldest recording we will be playing this entire evening. Tell us about it. First of all, tell us what year you think it's from.
Well, this is being conservative. I think it's probably 1898, 1899. It's a Berliner. And I'm going to slaughter this in my East Texas accent, but it's Serenade Moszkowski by Sousa's band. This is a 7-inch Berliner, and they're pretty early, primitive recordings. They're one-sided, and it's just neat to have something this early to play on the show tonight.
And tell us what a Berliner is. Tell the audience what a Berliner is.
Well, Berliner started out in England and would eventually, when it came over to the U.S., would eventually evolve into Victor. There's a long story that involves a lot of lawsuits and events to get to Victor. But, normally I'm an Edison guy, so I got to pick on you Victor guys a bit. But it's just a primitive recording. It's early. I don't want to use primitive. It's just early in the recording media of records.
So Berliner invented the disc record.
I believe that's right. Yes. Yeah.
And so at the time, the rival to the disc record was the cylinders, which was the standard format, and the cylinders had better the audio quality and such. The discs are more convenient. So what's going to be unique about this record is a lot of these early Berliners. They didn't use the best materials compared to later stuff, so the audio quality on them tends to be poor. In this one, you can actually hear the contents very well on it, and Eric's noticed something on the etching here, which he thinks is interesting. What is that?
Yeah, this is this master, the master that this record was stamped from, was signed by Arthur Pryor. And Arthur Pryor is, we record collectors have seen Arthur Pryor's name a lot if you pull through a lot of old records, because he had his own band. But before he did that, he was conductor for Sousa's band. Because you were saying...
Yeah, and what happened with Sousa did not really like the phonograph. I mean, he made money off of it, so he liked the money that the phonograph came from, but he didn't like the technology. He didn't think the audio quality was good, which it wasn't back then. So most Sousa recordings, Sousa himself was not present at the recording sessions, so they were conducted by Arthur Pryor, and so that's, I guess, why he signed this here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't even notice the signature on there until Eric had pointed it out. And I believe what you were talking about earlier, what Sousa had said is he felt that the recording industry had hurt the artistic value of music, so that was part of his reason for not liking the whole recording.
But he did like the money that came from it.
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of money on this, the principal advantage of the Berliner of Emil Berliner's gramophone is that from the very beginning you could make multiple copies from a master. And when this record was made in 1899, cylinders were made panographically. So in other words, they'd make a master and then they would have several machines like in a circle, and they would cut cylinders from the master they made until it wore out. But once you had a Berliner could take this and stamp a lot more copies of it. Speaking of money, it was much more lucrative and easy to make money off discs.
And what was cool about that technology with the cylinders, so what they had is a semicircle around of machines that were recording that, and like Eric said, they would pantographically copy that. But the thing is technically it's possible if you can get the cylinders from that recording session. So if you can get a machine that was on the right-hand side and a machine that was on the left-hand side and copies from original, if you just happen to get the right ones, you in theory could combine them together and have a stereo recording.
Yes, and that was something that's interesting. But the problem was that the master wore out very quickly. It was really hard to make duplicate copies on cylinder records until they developed the molding process at the turn of the century.
And a lot of them, and a lot of the cylinders, what would happen is the artists, they'd run out of the master. If it was a big selling cylinder, they'd call the artist back in to record another batch.
Oh yes, over and over. Yes.
So just because if you get a cylinder that has the same catalog number and the same information, it may not be that. If you find a duplicate, unlike a disc record, you see duplicates. They're usually the same, not always, but they're usually the same take. But on cylinders, it could be all over the place.
Yeah, they wore themselves out making records. The recording sessions would last all day, and it was just terrible. I can see, as a recording artist, I'd much prefer to go into the studio and have a few takes and have a disc, and you walk out and they have a master, and they can press as many as long as the master holds.
Well, maybe not, because in those days they paid the artists per take. So if you made cylinders, they paid you per take each time. Yeah. So anyway, you're going to actually be listening to the 19th century, and I always think that's interesting to be able to listen to music, not just the last century, but the century before. And again, it's rare to find them in this condition. So let's put the Berliner on and let's give it a spin. So you were hearing sound that was captured through an acoustic recording horn into grooves back in around 1898. So historically, the recording would have been, what you just heard there was slightly faster than what would have been in the studio. So typically the Berliners, typically on the Berliners, they were recorded less. We were playing that back at 78 RPM. They were usually recorded in the low 70 RPMs, and that could vary, and I have no way of testing it here, and I've got my preset on the phonograph for anything not 78 to be 80 RPMs, so we'd have to do a lot of adjusting. So we just played that at 78, but it would have been a little bit slower in reality. Now you had an interesting thing you've got in your museum, Dustin, about Sousa.
Yeah. This specific record that you just heard, I actually displayed in the museum at the Edison Exchange, and I displayed it with an original train car sign that came off of a train car in 1911. Supposedly was on Sousa's train cars on their world tour, and it says reserved for Sousa's band, Quinlan Production Company. It's just a cool piece. The piece was actually purchased from an estate of one of the family members and one of the original members, and had some provenance with it, so we actually use this record to display with it, and it's a neat display. So
yeah, that is very neat. So up next is a record of mine. Eric is picking it up out of my little box over there. This is a Radiex record. Radiex was a subsidiary label of Grey Gull. Grey Gull was a record label out of Boston. Grey Gulls were notorious, except for the very early ones, they were notorious for just horrible audio quality. They used the cheapest possible material. But this one actually has pretty decent for a Grey Gull type record. And it's probably an in-house band from Grey Gull with the pseudonym Metropolitan Dance Players. And I thought this was kind of a jazzy one. I thought it was kind of interesting. And it's called Harlem's Araby from about 1925. And I thought it was an interesting recording, so I'll play that as my first one for the evening. So here we go. So that was the Metropolitan Dance Players on a Radiex, an uncommonly good condition Radiex, and Harlem's Araby. And now Connor had made mention of something that I had done some research on this record some months ago, and I dug it out of boxes. And right before the broadcast, I was trying to recall what I had found. I wasn't able to confirm it, but what you said is consistent with what I discovered a few months ago. Tell us about that, Connor.
Yes, I believe that was played by Leeroy Smith's orchestra.
And tell us about Leeroy Smith.
Well, I couldn't tell you too much about Leeroy Smith, but he was a black band leader. He was known for leading like a Paul Whiteman-style black orchestra instead of a hotter jazz orchestra.
Yeah, he was one of the pioneering black dance bands. So, because they all recorded under pseudonyms at the time, and most of the Metropolitan Dance Orchestra recordings were actually the Gregola Studio Orchestra, but other people, including Adrian Schubert, also his recordings were used for that. But I think that was what I read back at the time. I just couldn't find that today when I was digging through Rust's discography. So that's very interesting. So now our next recording is one of the things is 2019 is going to be the 100th anniversary of the year 1919. And so we are going to be playing throughout the evening some recordings from 1919. And this is a very famous 1919 recording. It is probably the biggest pop hit of that year. This particular recording, the song is Dardanella, and a lot of recordings, including in decades since, have been made of Dardanella. But this was the one that made it famous. This was Ben Selvin's Novelty Orchestra. Now, at that time, Ben Selvin was not exclusively a Victor artist, so he recorded for a whole bunch of different labels. So he recorded Dardanella not just on Victor, but I think on Vocalion, Paramount, a whole bunch of other ones. So this is not the only recording that Ben Selvin made of. He went from studio to studio to record that, but combined of all the labels, he sold 5 million copies, I think. So it was one of the best-selling recordings from, it was done on the multiple labels. Now, I think a year later it was Paul Whiteman's, I think the first million record recording was in 1920 with Paul Whiteman's Whispering. But I think this was one of the early, really top-selling records. And so we're going to go to 1919. This was recorded in November 1919. This is Ben Selvin and Selvin's Novelty Orchestra, Dardanella. And that was Ben Selvin, Selvin's Novelty Orchestra, Dardanella. That was a big, huge hit in 1919 in celebration of that year's 100th anniversary. So we're made a full rotation. Up next in our rotation is Eddie the Collector. Eddie, tell us what you have for us.
I have a Brunswick from a recording on Brunswick by Jesse Stafford's orchestra. This one didn't make it into Rust's. I'm estimating it's 4629, probably September, October of 1929. I think most people know that Jesse Stafford assumed direction of the Herb Wiedoeft Orchestra after Herb Wiedoeft was tragically killed in an automobile accident in Medford, Oregon, in 1928. But anyway, this has a vocal by Charlie Blaine. He sang the vocal on many of these records then, and this one is I Only Wish I Had You With Me Last Night, Honey.
I have not heard this before, so this will be cool.
Were never half as bright as last night, honey. The moon was so romantic too. Never did I ever want to love you more. Never have I ever felt this way before. I only wish I had you with me last night, honey. It surely was a night to ooh. I surely had the blues for you.
Good, Eddie. That I like that. That was one of my favorite bands. I say one of because it's hard to pick.
Yeah, well,
but
they certainly were good. I never heard a band with them.
Yeah, and I got a bunch in the station by that group, but I do not have that one. I've never heard that one before, so that was a real treat. So we have up next is Eric. Eric, tell us what you've what you've got up for us.
Well, it was interesting seeing the Berliner record from 1899, and within a few years, the Victor Talking Machine Company had made a lot of improvements on recording, and so by 1914, when the next record was made, they made pretty respectable sounding records in terms of fidelity. This record coming is something that you don't see very often. It's actually a record by a company that made Victrolas about Victrolas. And it's by one of their star performers, Billy Murray. It's sort of hard to be a record collector for very long and not run into him. He made tremendous numbers of records. More about him later. But this curious recording from 1914 is called "They Start the Victrola and Go Dancing Around the Floor." And this goes to show that there's some things in life that just never change.
I'm looking forward to this.
Couple in full dress and gown who used to go to the parties in town, but he got jealous of all of the fellows. She looked so pretty they kept crowding around. He said with envy I'll turn them all green. He went and bought her a Victor machine. With that Victrola home they never have to roam, 'cause she gets her all alone. Then they start the Victrola, the little Victrola, and up comes the rug from the floor. At no more parties are they to be found. He likes to have her where no one's around. That's why he bought the Victrola, the little Victrola. They never go out anymore. And after dancing, she's all out of breath. He loves to take her and hug her to death. Then they start the Victrola, the little Victrola, and go dancing around the floor. Sometimes he doesn't roll home until 3. She sits there waiting, as mad as can be. Then grabs his collar and starts to holler. Guess you're forgetting that you're no longer free. She says, now dearie, you're wasting your life. Cut out that innocent look in your eyes. Just like a silly goose, he hasn't one excuse. Then they both say, what's the use? Then they start the Victrola, the little Victrola, and up comes the rug from the floor. At no more parties are they to be found. He likes to have her where no one's around. That's why he bought the Victrola, the little Victrola. They never go out anymore. And after dancing, she's all out of breath. He loves to take her and hug her to death. Then they start the Victrola, the little Victrola, and go dancing around the floor.
That was a really good recording. I think it was fascinating, though, is if you listen to the tune and the whole style of it, it's kind of a takeoff of another really popular song from that era called "He'd Have to Get Out and Get Under and Fix His Little Machine," about a poor fellow whose car kept breaking down, and that's kind of a play off that there. And Billy Murray in the acoustical era was very, he had this unique voice where, because they were recording through acoustical recording horns, and so he had this unique voice where he could almost sound conversational and not operatic when he was singing. And he had that unique voice. And then when electrical recording came along, you had the crooners and everything, and it kind of his career declined.
Well, he shouted. I mean, he shouted at a time when you had to shout to make a really good record. And he started making records commercially in 1903. So he had a long, long run. He made records up until, I think, 1943 was the last record he ever made. But His records were excellent acoustic records, but when he had electrical recording, well, you could be a lot more musical. He had one of his tricks was always singing a little flat for comic records, and it made them funnier. But it was just once the microphone came, yes, his career began to be eclipsed by others. So.
And you had a certain period there where you could actually, you had like the Hal Jolsons and the Harry Richmonds when they were making electrical recordings. They were from the old vaudeville days before microphones, and they'd belt the recordings out, and then you'd have the newer people, the Rudy Valleys and the Bing Crosbys, who would whisper into the microphone. So up next in our rotation here, we have Connor. Tell us, Connor, what you have for us.
Yes, one of my very favorite obscure singers, Ernest Rogers, who made a few records in the 1920s. I think he made 6 records, 5 for Victor and 1 for Columbia. He was a newspaper man in Atlanta, Georgia, and on the side he sort of played a guitar and sang some homebrew songs, vaudeville-style songs, and this one of his 1927 Victor recordings. This is label switched. Label says Steamboat Bill, but it's actually Waiting for the Robert E. Lee.
So so they got the record labels posted on the wrong side, or?
Yeah, wrong.
Oh,
A is B and B is A.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, a factory error.
Now, do you know did he write his own music? So is this a composition of Ernest Rogers?
No, he didn't write Steamboat Bill, but
he performed it.
He performed it. He sang some of his own songs, but these are not original songs to him.
Okay, sounds good. Let's take a listen and see what it is.
Down on the levee in old Alabama, there's Ephraim and Sammy, and Daddy and Mammy on a moonlight night. You will find them there, and while they're singing, their banjos are syncopating. What's that they're saying? Oh, what's that they're saying? As they sit there praying, a-humming and swaying. It's the good sheriff, Robert E. Lee, that's come to take the cotton away. Watch them shuffling along, see them shuffling along. Go get your best pal, best gal, and go down to the levee. I said to the levee, join that shuffling throng. Yeah, that music and song, it's simply great, mate, waiting on the levee, waiting for the Robert E. Lee. Watch them shuffling along, see them shuffling along. Go get your best gal, best pal, and go down to the levee. I said to the levee, join that shuffling throng. Yeah, that music and song, it's simply great, mate, waiting on the levee, waiting for the Robert E. Lee.
Yeah, that is a neat song. I have some recordings of that. I like that song. So what that does is that brings us up to our first hour of our 14th annual Radio Dismuke New Year's Eve broadcast. So we pre-record the broadcasts. Don't want to do them live anymore. That's a lot of logistical issues. And so what we're going to do is, for file management purposes, we do take breaks. So what's going to happen is, don't go away because we're going to be right back, but right before we come back, you're going to hear this really cool professional sounding announcer tell you some stuff and tell you that this is Radio Dismuke. So you'll want to look forward to that, and we'll be back on the other side of those announcements.